Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage number 29. Gear, technology, and recording. Are we going to have a time tonight or what? All right, first of all, thanks so much for joining us. Kind of an exciting week going on. Every so often you just kind of see the culmination of a number of things culminating simultaneously, and it's a culmination thereof. And there is a convergence of gear that is showing up at my doorstep on kind of a scary daily multiple pieces of gear per day at times. And so really, kind of with some of the, really interesting things that are happening, like a 3.5 millimeter TRS to quarter inch. That's not the MIDI cable I want. That was supposed to be the MIDI cable. They packed the wrong thing. Gotta love Amazon. You know what? They get it here on time. I'll get it here tomorrow. So the point being is that there is technology that is changing quickly and rapidly. There are lots of new things coming on here for those of us streaming fanatics. Look at that. It's got a little tail on it. I am so stoked to whip this out. This is my buddy Andy Cherna from Diffusion up in Canada sent this puppy down. I think Larry Mitchell's got one of these. But basically, this is your wireless control for all things streaming, so I can't wait to get that into the mix. So here's the thing. There is an onslaught of existing technology that musicians are just wanting to keep up with. There's also an onslaught of new stuff that's coming. So the goal of tonight was just kind of, take stock in where you're at. I don't know how many of you saw Chris Stark's post about recording and using, the ability to use reamping and how you approach all of that. But, there are obviously some very high level things that are happening in the midst of quote unquote our community here that I'm excited to talk about. So that's what we're going to do here. First of all, I'm going to see who is poking in on chat here. Nobody yet, and hopefully everything is going nice and kosher over here in streaming world. Yep, everything looks good. Let's take a look over there. And yep. Oh no. Shush. There we go. All right. Modular Beatmaker, what's up? I did. Oh, good. And by the way, I did happen to look over for your Instagram message. I haven't seen it yet, so I was looking for you. I hope you're doing great. So this is great. Awesome. Good. So one of the pieces of technology that we've been chatting about is this little puppy. So there's a little message there. Why is that not coming up with my ability? There we go. Thank you so much, Modular Beatmaker. There we go. So we are talking about the ES5, which is basically the ability to use the I wouldn't say little brother. I would say the more portable model of this. This is the ES8. And this thing is big. I mean, kind of look at the size of this thing. So ES5, way to go, Modular. Way to go. The funny thing is that I ordered, just in case you didn't know, and I was mentioning this a minute ago, the interesting thing is these new MIDI cables, there we go, you can see it right there. This is basically a 3.5 mini terminated MIDI jack, which is what these were supposed to be. At least I got the 3.5 millimeter business right. But this whole thing is kind of changing. So congratulations. We've been having a lot of fun hanging out on that Boss video, GT1000 Core video series. So that's great. Thanks for popping in. Great to see you again. Alrighty. What's going on, Mark? How you doing this evening? What's shaking? So this is going to be kind of a fun little kind of hangout tonight because we're just going to kind of take it by the seat of our rock and rolliness and just kind of see what happens here. So I also tried doing something that was a little different that is actually Facebook is actually working properly. There we go. Mr. Stark Industries is with us. Richard Doyle, great to see you, my friend. Tyler Zupo, I don't think we've met. Welcome aboard. Gilberto Osorio Resende. Hello from the United States to Brazil. What a pleasure. My Portuguese is non-existent, but I actually saw Brazil whip the pants out of the United States soccer team at the World Cup a few decades ago. So you guys got great musicians. and great spirit. So welcome. All right, so here's the thing. Is like we are here to entertain your questions, your comments, and we're just going to also jump into a dialogue. So I'm going to start off with the dialogue, and just feel free to just drop them in there. You know, the interesting thing about what's happening is if you look behind me, I'm kind of in the beginning of this video series for my friends over at RevAmps around the D20s, and kind of jumping into this convergence that we're all experiencing. Chris Alexander, long time no see. How you doing? Welcome aboard, my friend. There we go, Bruce Adolph. There we go. How you doing, Bruce? How do you like the title of the show? I did not say Gear Tech and Recording. It was just Gear Tech Recording. So the funny thing is, Bruce and I, Bruce is my publisher at Worship Musician Magazine, but he was also the publisher for Gear Tech and Recording Magazine. So I didn't do the logo, and I didn't say Gear Tech and Recording, but I was so tempted, but I did go Gear Tech Recording. Bruce, welcome to see you. Great, always a pleasure. Long time no chat. So Bruce and I, and again at the periphery of this Gear Tech and Recording conversation, is the way that as artists and musicians and businesses that we market ourselves and what we're doing. We talked the last time about email lists, so that's definitely on target. Literally, I was crafting an email for Bruce a little bit later that went out a little earlier, rather that went out to one of our distribution partners. So kind of all this stuff is getting overlaid, if you will. And that's, I don't think, I'm calling my lawyer, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. But the thing is as a community, because I have stumbled into a community, whoa, awesome, Tyler, awesome. From Cornerstone, great. Awesome. Henry McGon from the UK, from England, awesome. Welcome to you, my friend. I had a lovely stay in London, and then I actually also, separate from that, I was with the wife, but also got a chance to tour across Europe supporting Gilbert Clark, and that was awesome. So great country, welcome, awesome. Good. All right, so here, whoa. Speaking of Gear Tech and Recording, the man, the myth, the legend, Maddie. What's going on? Great to see you, my friend. You know, the funny thing is I was thinking about you earlier today because I have not yet put my hands on the Cab Clone IR Plus, but I am working on it. And, we were talking before about the idea of this whole technology and all this stuff emerging and all these overlaps. The technology, this is the thing. If you look behind me, what we're working on here is the Rev D20. And the Rev D20 is a combination of tube preamps, tube power amps, basically the ability with the USB to then be able to interface with the 2Notes software and be able to load virtual power amps, virtual reverbs, virtual cabinets, and in turn, through the DI, be able to basically load those internally there as well as to run them externally. We are at a time where all this stuff is going crazy. There was a demo that I did using a number of the different amps here, but including the JP2C, using the Cab Clone IR, which I was referring to earlier. I'm waiting to get the Cab Clone IR Plus because that puppy has the ability to basically have the whole power amp section of that. So, Maddie, always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you. Thank you for coming. So, the deal is, Rob, wait, what's going on? Rip it up, brother. Rev are great Canadian-made amps. They sure are. Those guys know how to rock the amplifier. Oh, awesome, Henry. Awesome. I saw you a couple of times at the last two ViCamps. Great to hear you enjoy England. Shame weather here is always rubbish, but the people make up for it. So that's awesome. So here's the things. We are at this impetus where this sort of stuff is becoming what's going to happen. The other thing is I have not yet had a chance to integrate this, but all of us are, Maddie is a bass player. So his whole thing is he's been using some of this time to get his bass chops. As I recall, he's been working on Teen Town. Maddie, by the way, how is Teen Town coming along? So this, in terms of this, what I love is that, in many of the ways that we're looking at technology, we're embracing computers. In other ways, we are looking at things that we can do so we don't have to use computers, because as we load a computer down in the midst of streaming, all of a sudden there's all sorts of stuff that we do. Then all of a sudden with this, look at this little Bluetooth little ditty here. So this is basically a controller. I am about to set this puppy up, but basically it will allow me to start and stop various applications. It will allow me to control various streaming functions. This ability to have all this foot control for guys like Chris Stark, for guys like myself, and for people that are all interested in taking this next journey. I think this journey that we're getting ready to take, all of us, is going to be an online one. I don't think we really know what it looks like, but we do know that we're going to have to understand that we have to have a wired internet connection. We're going to have to understand that we're going to have some sort of audio interface and or mixer. We also understand that our tone matters like it's never mattered before, because you can't fix it in the mix live. But that's one of the great things about this paradigm shift that's happening, is that I think we're at a place where our technology is going to allow us to find out what happens. It's one of my favorite things. I think it was Friday night. I did, the half an hour jam. No, it had to have been Saturday, because that's when I pushed the clip out. But basically the idea is taking the live moment. And this is one of the great things. And I'm gonna reference Maddie here for just a second. Maddie is a brilliant. First of all, Maddie can really play the guitar. In case, and at the risk of calling him out, I'm just going to go there. Maddie is John Petrucci's magician behind the scenes. Like John, awesome, slow but getting there. Love it on Teen Town. That's great. So basically, John pulls the rabbit out of the hat. Maddie's the guy that makes the hat. So what's neat is, first of all, I've had a chance to get to know Mike Rand. What's going on? Great to see you. I've had a chance to get to know Maddie at the camps, and like all these techs, he's a lovely guy. And the deal, I mean, if you think about it, if you had to put up with guitar players all day long, no slight to Mr. Petrucci there, it's like, well, the tone's almost there, but can we spend another hour moving the microphone? It's just one of those things where we just really, that detail matters. And the great thing about Maddie is just like, every time that I saw Maddie at the camp, basically, John was there, and then John went off and did other things. Maddie was always there with the gear, taking care of stuff. It was basically like an 8 to 12 hour day that he was there, taking care of everything. That level of detail, Maddie is to John Petrucci which Mick Brigden is to Joe Satriani. And for those of you who don't know who Mick Brigden is Joe's manager, and not necessarily on the technology side per se, but Mick is the man, just a brilliant manager and gets stuff done. Mick worked with the Stones. He worked with Bill Graham Management. That's how he ended up working with Joe. And he is a lovely man, exceedingly smart, exceedingly good about getting the job done. So what does this have to do with you and I? Because we have to be Maddie, John, Joe, and Mick, and whoever our DP, director of photographer, is, and kind of, if you will, virtual front of house simultaneously. So how the heck do we manage that in this day and age? Luis Moreno, ¿cómo está, amigo? ¿Qué pasó? So let's see here. Good. So first of all, obviously, I'm not seeing any questions in yet. So let's break this down. The Rev amps are a really great example of this. First of all, I'm working on a video series. So this is one of the things that I want to, again, share with this community. It's like I'm getting this crazy opportunity. I am in it literally about 5:30 is when I get the FedEx notices for the next day. I'm like, Ibanez, Fender. Like tomorrow I got 3 things showing up. I'm like, this is awesome. And that's, separate from, unfortunately, not getting my MIDI cables from Amazon, but we'll fix that. Then, the other thing that I've got coming is the Royer, Royer's made this 57 121 mount that basically enables you to place and perfectly phase align, arguably the perfect combination the Royer 121, which adds all this lovely body, and then the Shure SM57 that gives you kind of that clarity, that attack. And so I'm waiting. Those should be coming a little bit later tonight. So the point being is I'm going somewhere with this. We're at this point where whether you're doing it in the box, you're doing out of the box, or with the Rev amps, we're doing both. We're at a point where our fluidity at shuffling the deck, we've got to get good at that. And Chris Stark, I loved your post. Laugh out loud reminds me I need to put in a Sweetwater order for an audio interface. Chris, what are you looking at? What are you looking at getting? By the way, everybody, let me know what your gear lusting. Bring it on. Like, I want this. I want this. And then make sure you kind of get your wife on the stream, so or girlfriend or husband, or that kind of came out wrong. But thus far, I've only seen dudes. So we're waiting for the women to show up. Even that sounds wrong. I just can't quite get this right sometimes. So we'll just move right along. So the point being is this. This ability to traverse these worlds it's getting multi-layered. So let's talk a little bit about the amplifier side of this, because the video that I'm working on, it's a series of videos for the Rev amps. And the great thing about the Rev amps is they sound great in the room, but they also have the 2-notes torpedo technology embedded. So this first video, and I can share this because it's going to be out on Saturday, is about walking people through the fact that you can bypass the power amp on the XLR out. Here we go. There we go. So in so doing, you're able to use the virtual power amps inside the 2-notes remote software. Now, here's the thing, is that over there is my AC30 with all 3 handles that is powered by British-style tubes, which is arguably in a Class A single. It's basically a Class A power, as opposed to basically, I'm not going to go tubey because my other than to say there's Class A and Class AB, where it's basically this push-pull thing that's happening with Class AB power amps. They have a different sound. So what the reality is that you're now able to select a virtual power amp and the virtual tubes that go with this. So, for example, the original tubes that would be in a Vox AC30 would be an EL34. This lovely kind of chimey, jangly sort of thing. The smaller orange amps have an EL84, as I recall. And so the point being is that the chime and the jangle has something to do with that power amp section. The other part of it is that then you're able to go, well, do I want to use the accurate power amp section? So in theory, what I would be doing is I would be pulling up the EL34s on that puppy. It is EL34s and not EL84s, isn't it? I don't know. I should have checked. But the point being, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. So the point being is that they are basically a Class A power amp section, and it has this very unique sound. The Tweeds, I'm pointing at the Edge Tweed Deluxe over there, that is a Class A power amp section. The Deluxe Reverb that's hiding somewhere behind there, and then the Vibroverb is a Class AB. So in those two kind of close to neighbor generations of Fender amplifiers, you have a different type of power amp section. And as I was experimenting around, just double checking, like, yeah, Class A 6L6 sounds markedly different than a Class AB 6L6. And the 6L6 is the tube traditionally associated with a twin reverb. And so it's a louder amplifier. But the interesting thing is I was toggling between these two amps, one of which was set up virtually, and the other was set up utilizing the virtual output, or I should say the direct output, but also leveraging the internal 6V6 power amp tube. Now, the 6V6 power amp tube is the tube most commonly associated with a deluxe reverb. And the thing about a deluxe reverb, I think I'm wired for sound here. So a deluxe reverb has got this really kind of pretty this kind of intimate dealio happening where it's a kinder, gentler tube than a 6L6, which is just a little bit more aggressive. And so the idea of selecting in this virtual world and being able to kind of design our own amplifiers, and again being in the two notes, because there's a lot of people that are in the two notes world, you're able to do that. And the same thing starts to happen inside the Waza tube amp expander. You can begin to choose the power amp that you want, that's the power amp and tube set that's appropriate for the amp that you're basically taking a tap off of, or you can just begin to kind of go, well, okay, well, I want to do something different. So this is where this kind of marriage of knowing the analog world and knowing the difference between EL34 and EL84, and then being able to bring that into the digital world and then traverse between the two becomes very valuable. And Chris's and I'm going to jump back to questions here in just a minute, and I'm just going to actually let me just settle this once and for all. Tubes in AC30. Isn't the internet an amazing thing? Tube set. How about the power amp tubes, you schnoik? Come on. Almost there. EL84, the moron has spoken. All right. Well, at least I checked. Did a little tardy due diligence. All right. So the point being is the EL84, it's this chimey, jangly thing. Then the EL34 is the British Marshall tube. Okay. Got it. So here's the thing. Is it selecting that tube set enables us to add that other flavor. Let's see, which one am I actually on? Give me a second here, because I should actually be able to demonstrate this virtually. So let's take a look. Where am I here? So that is the actual 6v6. So I should be able to get over to the where. Oh, there it is. Hang on. There we go. Got a little AB switch. By the way, this is a little vintage AB action for you. This is basically the same one that good old Stevie Ray used to use back in the day. Hang on a second. Why am I not seeing any metering going on over there? Oh, and I'm also got bleed going on here. Hang on just one second. I'm going to walk and talk. Doppler's back. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess around with this a little bit. Let's have a little bit of fun. So this is kind of the dealio. All right, so that's the A, and this is the B. The mad scientist at work breaking things. So let's pull up some power amp. So that's a single-ended 6L6. Let's pull up a push-pull 6L6. This time without any bleed. Back to the single-ended 6L6 and then the push-pull. Here we go. So that extra body on the bottom, the end there, is pretty indicative of kind of the nuance that separates, in my opinion, the kind of the clarity that you get with a 6v6, which is a gentler sounding tube, and the 6L6, which just kind of muscles its way through the mix. The origin of that comes from the fact that the twin reverb was basically Fender's 100-watt answer for like, we're going to be heard above all things in a live situation, when PAs didn't really exist in the way that they do now. And sound people weren't telling us to turn down. All right. So Chris Stark, hang on a second. Let's take a look at your recording interface thing here. All right. Good. Let's take a look here, Ski. And let's see. That's on YouTube, so I should be able to bring that puppy in over here. Okay. Oh, look at all of this good stuff. All right. I have not checked out the Driftwood Mini Nightmare, Mike Rand, but you've piqued my interest. Braden, what gear am I lusting after? Time and space to get back to work building my next car. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Uh, uh, I've been thinking about grabbing a Katana 212. Have I used one? I have not, and I've reached out to Jeff about getting a Katana up here. I think the Mark II is the kind of the latest and the greatest. So I have not, but we're going to need to fix that. And the Katana again. Here. Let me just read anybody in that is interested. The thing that the Roland people are doing that is incredibly crafty is they've got this aired technology, which it stands, I think, for all advanced impulse response Doppler. No. But basically, what they've done is they've created this kind of AI thing that's happening that the tone changes based on where you are on the neck, what strings you're on, how hard or how soft you hit. And in turn, it does this thing where you can actually feel it underneath the strings. I don't know how they've done it, but it is flipping genius what they're doing. So the whole thing is that technology is also baked into the Katana amps. So they have really kind of tapped into something that's very unique and very special. I mean, the funny thing is for those of us that think of, Boss as the kind of like oh, there we go. Hey, what's going on? Hang on a second. I'll pull that in just 1 second. I am guilty of loving old rolling gear. Oh, wait. Hold on. I have to commiserate with that. Hang on. I'm doing it again. I can't help myself. It's supposed to have gone in the rack, but I will share your SDE 3000 moment with you today. For those of you who don't know, this is one of the coolest delays of all time. So, as Bent will tell you, there was a period of time that these were noting his what do you call that graphic there? Your icon, your avatar. There we go. Eddie had these in his racks there for a while. Steve Vai, this was kind of the name delay that he used for those long delays back in the day. The only bummer about these is that they're not MIDI. But Frank Gambale, way back in the 80s when I was at GIT, actually had somebody that put MIDI on these guys. But basically, they are fabulous. Bent, congratulations. Amazing piece of gear. Just an iconic sound. The funny thing is, and I learned this from our buddy Jeff at Roland. Let me not break something tonight here. Which is that apparently the Boss DD series is modeled after the sound of that. And apparently, and he mentioned this a couple of weeks back, the SDE 3000 is a digital delay, but apparently the sound of the delay itself is actually analog, which I thought was fascinating. I will tell you the piece of gear that I'm lusting after. Two, actually. Well, two that I can immediately come to mind. I want a horsey. But it's for a good reason. I want a Klon horsey because I want to do some demo work around that and just kind of going, because it's kind of one of those pedals that's so stupidly overpriced. Nobody in their right mind would actually buy one unless you had some very specific purpose. Klon horsey. That's one of the other one. My buddy Henry Kaiser loaned me the TC Electronic 2290 for similar reasons. I want to be able to kind of go, here is that iconic delay. Here's what it does. Because I borrowed one. I did some audio demos, but not really kind of like, here it is in front of you. This is what it does. So regardless, Bent, amazing delay. I absolutely love it. Oh, that's so funny. We're going to go all the way out. The PCM 70. What about a PCM 60? Love it. So for those not in the know, we're going a little old school here. But basically, there was a period of time where Lexicon owned the digital reverb universe. And so like pretty much anybody who had a refrigerator-sized rack, I actually didn't own a PCM 60 or 70. And as I recall, the PCM 41 was the digital delay, or the PCM 40. And so that was, and these things were all studio pieces of gear that, depending on how you slice and dice it, guitar players either wanted the same fidelity that they had in the studio when they played live, so they weren't using at the time, delay pedals that didn't have that same amount of bandwidth, the DM2, great sounding pedal that everybody loves now. But at the time, you didn't have those long delay times, and fidelity was different. There we go. PCM 41 and 42 are delays. Thank you very much. I'm seeing the quad cortex says, so I'm just waiting to pull that up. But the thing is that the Landau delay. So, and also Corrado Ricci. I mean, and so the whole thing, or it was not only they wanted the fidelity, they were just like, I want to build a rack that's more expensive than the car that it goes in, right? Because it's like, because I can. And it's a little bit of an LA thing, and I think it's honestly a little bit of both. So, yeah, the quad cortex, I hope I can print Pripyat syndrome, and I'm terrible with names, but what did you think of Kiko's demo? Right, just like there he is, and I mean, those plugins, the plugins are sick, dude. Just sick. Awesome. Yes, I think that's going to be a very exciting piece of gear. And rumor has it, I sent those guys an email today, just saying, hey, bring it on. All right, let's see what's going on in the Book of Face. Let's see, Chris Stark. My wish list is for something UA, but my budget says Focusrite Claret 8 Pre. So, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, hang on a second. They have the internet for this. So I'm pretty sure the Claret, and for those of you that have heard me repeat this before, at the risk of repeating myself, one of the things I'm 90% positive about the Claret is that it has light pipe. Okay, why does this matter? Let's see, that's the 4 I'm actually looking for. Well, let's see if the 4's got the light pipe on the back. So the whole thing is light pipe was basically a standard that was developed by, there it is, Spidiff and Optical. Okay, great. Let's see. Let me go ahead and share this browser here. Hang on. Boy, we're having way too much fun. Okay, let's do a little of this. Let's get to the right browser window. There we go. Actually got it there. All right, so what we're looking at is this little bit of business right here, the optical input. Okay, why that's important is that enables you to basically get 8 additional channels of audio into that puppy. Now, why do you want 8 channels of audio? Why wouldn't you want 8 channels of audio? So it's not up here to my upstairs studio. Oh, hang on. Let me get over there. Octopre Mark II Dynamic. Give me a moment. Octopre. There we go. Dynamic. All right. So this puppy right here. Oh, wow. Pre-order. There's the quad cortex. That's a little scary when you see that puppy come up like that. Come on. Where'd you go? Come on. Octopre. There we go. That's really weird. It just there we go. Okay, hang on. Let me jump over here and heading in. So this one, I have the earlier version of this, but basically every channel on the top here, you've got compression, and then you've got volume, and I think those got more compression, right? So you've got multiple levels of compression, and then I think you're able to assign, there you go, phantom power inputs 1 through 4 and 5 through 8. So you just got to be conscious of anything that needs phantom power, and you put it in the appropriate group of 4 inputs, and anything that doesn't, you don't, because you can blow up a microphone that's not supposed to have phantom power if you run phantom power to it. 57 is pretty much indestructible, but we don't like to blow up microphones. So, okay, so here's the whole thing, is that, I left it upstairs, but in the photo, and I'm going to lose audio. Wait, I can pull it up here, just one moment. No, maybe it didn't. Oh, here we go. Yeah, in this image right here. In this image right here. There we go. In the lower right, you've got the Apollo twin there. And so what's neat about that is it's totally portable. I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that's exciting about this little piece of technology is I'm running out of real estate. My desk is filled with stuff. So the idea of having a smaller footprint and something you can banish off to the rack there is hugely advantageous. And the neat thing about, again, where are you, my little baby? There we go. You can see that giant knob there on the top there. That's basically monitor control right on the top of your desk. You can also set that for a function called dim. That is a very convenient thing. So you can either set it so it just totally turns everything off. So say, you get a business call, you just want it silent, boom, you hit the dim control. Or you can set it so it just reduces it by X number of dB. Why is that valuable? And again, I'm going to jump around tonight, but this is me having a huge amount of fun. So button up. Octopre has low dB gain, 48, I think. What level does the dynamic have? I don't know, Richard. That's a great question. Let me, before I non sequitur to the question, let me unsequitur back. Why we want the extra channels and why we want it kind of off in the rack is this. Is that, and I'm experiencing this actually honestly with my Apollo 8. The first two inputs on that are basically, if I plug an instrument cable in, it's basically a high Z impedance. It's wanting to see a guitar or a bass. And the third input, which I think I've now shifted over to the fourth for some reason, is always my shotgun microphone. By the way, speaking of microphones, look at this. So this is from a company called DPA, and I've got the wrong base on this, so that's me, not them. But this is the cutest little microphone. So they make a lot of mics that are used in film and TV. So I'm getting ready to do some video around a suite of products. But the great thing about something like this, and they've got a whole range of these little mini shotguns that you're able to place them. So say for example you're a vlogger, you can place it in the blind of your car. What the hell is that thing called? The thing so you don't go blind as you're driving. That thing that flaps down, you can place it there. And they have a whole suite of microphones that basically enable you to hide them but get tremendous fidelity on set. And I'm a big fan of shotguns, but they are big. And if you accidentally, get it in your shot and aren't paying attention, you have to do. By the way, here Doppler's hacks. Okay, let's do this. Okay, video editors, and I will jump around a little bit because I'm just in that mood. Bear with. So the deal is that every so often you make a mistake in video and you're like, how do I fix it? I only know how to do it in Premiere, but basically what I will do if I really, really need to salvage something is that, and as I move around here, you're going to notice that I cast shadows. There you go. If you take a look at the guitar coffin over there, look at this guitar. I think it's one of those two. Watch the shadow that I cast as I move, okay? So if I want to fix something, what I will do is I will basically sit in the same position, obviously such that there's not something obstructing that, and then I will videotape, track again that same section of video, and then what you can do is you can crop sections of the video out and or overlay them. That is to say, if I took the same exact image that I'm taking here and overlaid another one over the front, but cropped all of this business out, but had the part that I was fixing, I've done that a number of times when I've had like a paper towel in the middle of a set or something stupid like that, and you look back, or it's not until you bring everything onto the timeline, you're all done, and you move things around, and you're like, oh no, then you kind of go, okay, how can I fix this? So that is kind of the thing, so long as you haven't done any great change. So the moral of the story is don't move anything until you check your work. But the neat thing is by overlaying a second version of that same shot and then just kind of cropping that, and you can crop it from left to right, top to bottom. That is a way you can fix it, quote unquote, in the video mix. Getting back to this whole audio thing, the challenge with the Apollo is there's 4 XLR inputs, and I'm wanting more XLR inputs. So I'm kind of like, ooh, and you would think 4 is enough. Well, what's happening is that I, if I've got one that I always leave for shotgun because I don't really want that level changing that much. Again, Chris Stark, I watch you shooting a lot of video. Richard, we are, when we do our lessons, you got your whole setup there. We you're not changing stuff around, for all the stuff that we're wanting to do. We want to basically have certain channels where we don't change anything. So basically 1 and 2 are the ones that I'm patching stuff all flipping day long. And it is really annoying. So the point being is that, and I want to have the ability to attenuate the channel from the mic pre with the control as opposed to going back to the amp, turning it up, turning it down, doing all that. I want to be able to adjust it from here. Such is my life. Okay. All right, there we go. Hey, there we go. The Claret 8 Pre is a great choice of non-event. They are phenomenal. The Focusrite stuff is, they sound great. They don't break for the most part. I know one person that theirs broke. But the point being is that oh boy, I'm being baited here. Hang on a second. All right. Hey, what's going on, Doug? How are you? Good to see you, mate. Welcome aboard. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Shredder. Okay, yes, it has light pipe. So, okay, so again, the deal is jumping back into this thing. So, light pipe is a spec that was developed for ADAT, and that was invented by the same guy that founded Line 6, Marcus Ryle. And so he basically he's a genius. And I think I don't know if he invented the Oberheim, but he also worked at Oberheim. I mean, the guy has been everywhere. So then he sold Line 6 for bazillions of dollars to Yamaha. And I think I heard that he's hanging out with UA. I could be wrong, but that would be like a logical place for that guy to go. So he invented light pipe. So again, we've talked about this a couple times in the past. So if you've ever had, like, in particular, a Sony multi-unit setup, and you had this little kind of very thin, kind of flexible cable that when you unplugged it from one end, you kind of saw this red laser. That's light pipe. So all this digital information travels through light pipe. It's a great. What's neat about it, unlike SPDIF, which is the other kind of digital. I guess that's a coaxial cable. Which, kind of a little bit more rigid. Light pipe is this little baby little light pipe. First of all, it's really cute, but it also kind of, one of the things that starts to happen, you end up with spaghetti back there. And if you've ever tried to kind of gently coax the cable through when you really need to go around the back side of the rack, the neat thing about light pipe is it seems to just want to float. Very cool. I'm replacing, there we go. All right, let's take a look here. Let me make sure that reminds me I need to put in Sweetwater order for the interface. Wish list is for something UA, but my budget. That's because you bought all those modules, Chris. You got thinking. By the way, that new guitar is gorgeous and you sound great. The video was really cool. Love that. Low dB gain 48. I think. What level does the dynamic have? I don't know. Hang on. I can find that out. Let's see. Is that on here? Specs, dB, that, yeah, Sweetwater ought to be on there. No, it's not in here. 192, though, that's good. My old one was 96, I think. And I've still got it upstairs. Great units. Sorry, Richard, I cannot answer that question. Yep, the recabling is a motivation for going with 8 channels out of the gate. It's a serious thing. I'm replacing an old Firewire-based Focusrite Sapphire, which, again, is still working. Ed May! My man, come on. Bro hug. What is happening? Give the lefty guys some. What's happening? That was great to see your post the other day. Years ago, after a Joe Satriani show at the Warfield, Kirk, Rebecca, his wife at the time, and not your buddy, but the other guy, and I'm going to forget his name, that did a bunch of those Metallica shirts. We went out for a Korean barbecue and just kind of hung out. That was really cool. But so Ed May is an old student of mine, great guitar player, a lefty, as you probably just discovered, and also is a brilliant graphic artist, and he's buddies with this guy, rock and roll t-shirts or something like that. But it's cool. First of all, thanks everybody for hanging out. This is lots and lots of fun as I blabber along. So, Mark, I was not into the Rockman units. I was buddies with. Nope, not gonna get it. Sammy Hagar. No. Not Sammy Hagar's old guitar player. The other guitar player that played with Tom Schultz after Boston, and they had these giant rack head Rockman things, and I wish I'd had that stuff, and I don't. I do have it, and RJ Ronquillo kind of beat me to the punch, but more power to him because the guy's a genius and a great. By the way, if you want to hear Rockman being played brilliantly, Go check out RJ's video on YouTube. It's unreal. That guy, the touch, I'm like. So in any case, I've got a rock man that actually, it's not mine, but it belongs to a guy, Marcus James, who actually Joe Satriani did one album called Green Eyes with him, and Joe played a bunch on that. I don't know whether Joe was playing on Marcus's Rockman, but that's the Rockman I've got. So I'm going to be busting that puppy out. But I only have the it's a Rockman 100 as opposed to a soloist. Sean Varley, what's going on, my man? But you've seen Gentle Musings of Doppler's Vintage Vault, which is kind of going to be basically a demo series where I'm just pulling all this crazy stuff because, the neat thing is that there's actually an SDE 3000 in that guy. And, there are people that are scarfing these puppies up. And so the idea is kind of go, hey, here's what this thing did. I'm a bit of a gear collector, so I can kind of put together some of the appropriate pieces of gear and go, this is kind of how it was framed back then. And, if you're going to go with a model, then you kind of go, oh, here are the other pieces of the signal chain that I would go to put this together. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Sean, what's going on? Good to see you. By the way, a great DAW controller I'm using, some Electro 1. Okay, I haven't heard of that, so I will make a note. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a mad note taker these days. Electra 1. Awesome. Thanks for that. Ed May, Mark DeVito, thank you very much. Love you too. Awesome. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about recording. So an interesting thing happens tomorrow at about 9 a.m. I mean, it's like we're buzzing here a little bit, so there must be a couple of you guys who saw this amazing announcement. So I can't play the backing track and the thing that I played over the top of it because that would be a little inappropriate. But I do want to talk a little bit about, without kind of revealing too much of the plot, but revealing more of the plot than I would kind of just out on a post. I got this email from Joe's manager, Mick Brigden, saying, "Hey, we'd like you to actually play on one of these backing tracks." And I was like, and I basically burst into tears. And then because I'm just like, and so the thing is that and so it's already been published, so I can actually say, for this was a couple of weeks ago, and ironically, I cut it the day that Eddie Van Halen died, which was a very interesting thing because that, like, and we're all going to start bawling here in a minute. So I got my Bruce Adolph, who was on here and may still be on here, sent me a text when he heard about it, but I was literally in the midst of recording the video for that. I basically have a trio of cameras that I use to kind of capture this, and I basically shoot using an application called Ecamm Live, and I'm capturing to each of those, and I bring them into Premiere. So, I just want to walk you guys through kind of the pre-production process for that, because I think it's valuable, because I'm always interested in that there are different ways I approach different projects, and I would like to share this with you because I think it was an interesting thing. First of all, I knew that there were going to be a bunch of people watching it, so I was like, what exactly am I going to do? Which song am I going to do? And why would I do it? So ultimately, If I Could Fly was one of the songs that, as I kind of went through between a couple of, the other one was kind of a shreddier one, and I was like, okay. But then I was kind of like, well, there's going to be a bunch of other folks that are probably going to shred. So you know what? Why don't I just hug the curve a little bit, tighter, and just kind of go for something that's a little bit more melodic? Not that there's anything wrong with shredding, and not that shredding can't be melodic, but it's a different vibe. It's a different vertical. So then I kind of went through the songs, and I saw If I Could Fly, and I'm like, that's the one, because I'm kind of like this happy guy, and I'm like, and that kind of ultimately is one of my favorite places to live. So then I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do here to bring something here? So I ended up just kind of playing through the track, and the interesting thing is that I'll share this with you, is that the track actually, it's kind of, it's got this very kind of majory. Yeah, major. Just the funny thing is that in as much of a mode maniac that I am, Right. Then in kind of the bridgy section, it goes into Mixolydian, right? It's kind of don 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 don. But the point being is that there's a moment where you make the transition from the majory happy melody part to the kind of pentatonic infused blues, what I basically refer to as the mixo-octatonic scale. That is to say, if you took the minor pentatonic and you mixed the Mixolydian scale with that, basically it gets you one, your two, your flat three, your three, your four, your five, your six, and your flat seven, the mixo-octatonic scale. And it's basically you're kind of cruising through the minor pentatonic, and then you resolve from the flat three to the natural three, and then you add the natural six in there, and you can also add the natural seven, which is kind of where that whole thing happens. So you're kind of creating tension and release. So the thing is that I needed to find a way to go from the melody into that thing, so it wasn't just kind of. So I actually sent Joe an email. I'm like, and this is one of the things I'm like, oh man, I feel a little strange to this, but do you mind if I edit the track? So I basically sliced and diced it a little bit so I could go from the melody and then go into, is basically, I think it was the second melody and then kind of the outro jam, and I just go and put those together, which was kind of a fun thing to be able to then kind of go, okay, because it enabled me to go from the melody, because I really wanted to do the melody, and then go into this minor pentatonic and Mixolydian resolve thing. So, and then what I did was I just spent a bunch of time living with the track, playing over it, trying to figure out where I was going to live without trying to copy myself, but also kind of going, okay, here are a couple of shticks without working it out, because I didn't want it to be like, oh, I've worked this thing out. I really wanted it to be this thing where it felt like it was improvised, because then it would feel like it was improvised. In any case, you'll get a chance to hear that if you're so inclined tomorrow at 9 a.m. But I was really pleased with the way it came out. And then, of course, then I'm done. I check my text, and my boss like, Eddie Van Halen just died. And I'm just like, I burst into tears. I mean, if I had checked that text before I finished recording that thing, I would have just been destroyed, as I was. Too much information, but there you have it. All right. Okay, there we go. So, Mark, so the SPDIF is the coax, the RCA connection, the optical toss link. So hang on, there's a little reference to it right here. The digital inputs here. Hang on, I've illuminated it in blue. I'm not doing. Here's the thing: is I'm not the kind of like, let me correct you. So not that guy. But let's see. There we go. You can see it's kind of highlighted. It didn't come through in blue. It's in gray. Digital inputs 2 times optical toss link. Sorry. My bad. So let me rephrase. Optical also is there's a nickname for it that they call it light pipe. So it is basically light traveling through this pipe. But optical. There you go. You said optical toss link. Thank you. Sorry, I'm the idiot. So but the point being is that there is a group of one that at least calls that flipping light pipe. Have for some days the Bosch GT 1000 core. What a nice machine! Wow, thank you very much. Since I saw your videos, I like what I found so far, but I haven't found a way to get something similar reverb sound. Hang on. Okay, so the like the Ableton reverb, the reverb of the Boss sounds too sterile to my ears. Do me a favor, let me know which reverb you're using, and I will say this: there are, I find generally, because reverb is a great topic to rabbit trail on. There are generally 2 reverbs that I have a tendency to gravitate towards. One is going to be a spring reverb, and 2 is a plate reverb. Most of the time, the others don't sound great with guitar. There are times that they do, but a great sounding room reverb has to sound really woody, and quite often they just sound fake. So the spring is good if you're going for a traditional Fendery type of thing. The plate I actually found to be really good, and the ability to EQ it, and you seem obviously versed across a range of things. So One of the things that I'm always going and doing is I am shaping the tone of the reverb. The other thing that you might do is put an EQ. Um, let's see, the reverb block, you actually can't put a side shade on it. And if you put an EQ, I don't think you can move the reverb block. Um, nope, that won't work. Uh, so do me a favor. Let me know which reverb you're using or reverbs you're using and kind of. But for me, the one that I found that I really liked a lot was the plate reverb. But here's the great thing about Jeff, who is this lovely guy, is he really knows what he's doing, and we're collecting some really good feedback from people. So first of all, thanks so much for checking out the video. Glad you dug it, enjoyed it. And the neat thing is like it's a really crazy cool little box, and again, it's this little tiny thing, can fit into your gig bag, and but it's also good for them to hear what people aren't digging about it, because they can figure that out about firmware. That's going to get us into another subject here that I will endeavor with, which is this whole concept. One of the comments that I got from some people was, one of the specific questions was, what is basically the firmware calendar, and will that be posted publicly? And I was like, oh, we are at a different moment in time. So I'd be curious if anybody in here would like to let us know kind of what their kind of what sort of stuff they're using modeling wise, because the interesting thing is I saw a comment on a similar. I'm on the beta development team for another manufacturer's hardware, and that's all I can say publicly. So the point being is that this whole firmware update cycle the interesting thing is, and we've reached a benchmark time now where for people that becomes much, much more important than arguably just the purchase of the initial piece of gear. And that's a fascinating place and time to be at. So I find that very interesting. All right. Who's got some more questions here? Bring it on, folks. Feed me. Otherwise, I'm gonna meander here, and I don't want to do that. But I can, and I will. Okay. Well, with that said, reverb. This is an interesting topic. So this is one of the things that I actually love about the whole world of. Nope, that's not open. I can probably get to it from over here. Okay, so let's go over, and I should be able to target these windows here. So I'm going to, for any of the people that are focused on the universal audio world, let's take a moment and go into UA world. And I'm going to show you two of my favorite things in UA world. So let's get over here, UA mixer engine, aux 1, there we go. All right, so that right there is, for anybody that lives in UA world, is the secret sauce delay that many people do not know about. So I want to share this with you. So this little puppy here, and it's kind of my classic quarter note dotted eighth. This is the Cooper Time Cube, and it was actually originally made after a garden hose. Go figure. But basically, this delay has everything you could possibly want to have for a studio delay. And the great thing is with aux, you can put into your live rig. First of all, high pass filter means you can. Oh, I'm trying to move my preview screen. Oh, hang on. Let me jump over into here. There we go. So with the high pass filter, basically what that means is I can cut low end off. I can also adjust the gain going into this thing, which Richard was talking about that before. I can adjust my delay times. Then in turn, I'm also there's the sync. That's the important puppy. Send on. I don't know what that is, but my guess is that has to do with this little bit of stuff that I don't mess with. But here's the secret sauce: the treble control and the bass control. So you can literally, in addition to having a high pass filter, so anybody that doesn't know that, basically what this means is the high pass filter says that as I turn this up, only the highs pass, and I can increasingly cut the amount of low end that I want. And generally, you don't want a bunch of stuff rumbling around down in there. So being able to adjust that is a big deal. And in turn, being able to separately from that adjust the tonality of the echoes themselves. That is to say, we're saying, hey, let's not let a bunch of that rumbly bass into here in the first place, but in turn, let's adjust how bright or how dark we want our delays to be. And here you adjust the delay time, here's the decay, and traditionally you'll notice that for the quarter, I've got the decay time less than I have for the dotted eighth because the dotted eighth is a shorter delay, which means with the same number of delay repeats, it will die sooner than a quarter note delay. And then these guys, I pan them left and right because it's in a stereo bus. And then there's the volume, which should be matched. And then because it's basically in an aux bus there, and not on the individual channel strip, I've got these both set. Well, that's the on-off like a moron. So it's pure wet. And that puppy is the secret sauce of UA delays for me. The other one I want to bring to your attention, because this is a big, big deal in my world, is this puppy. And that right there is the, let's see, there we go. We toggle between the three. Come on. There we go. That right there is the plate reverb, the EMT 140 that was at the plant. And again, I run it in basically in an aux bus, so it's always all wet. But basically, this is the reverb that was used on records like Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, just a bazillion records. And it's a phenomenal reverb, and that's the one that they nabbed and modeled. So that right there is the sound of hit records and the ability to use that reverb. So to answer kind of Pripyat, you're kind of, kind of like, hey, the reverb thing. Sometimes if you don't like the reverb, or as is the case with the rev amps, they don't have any onboard effects besides the 2 notes reverb. But say I want my EMT reverb. That's one of the other things I can do is kind of go, okay, there's some other places that I can locate that, right? So that's one of the things that we can do this. So that's another option. Okie dokie. So that is my reverb talk. So let's talk about getting a great guitar take. How do we actually consciously get to a place where we get a take that we're really happy with? One of the things that I've really endeavored to do in this past season is spend enough time every week or every 2 weeks, and in my particular case, I do it live where I'm streaming, where I'm learning to find a vibe. It's kind of like a cat on a cat rope. Is I'm forcing myself to actually be in a place, and I've talked about this before, where I am having to navigate my path in a live situation where there's no net. And I think this gets back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream, where we want to have the opportunity to take chances and feel like we're improvising. And the fact that live is now the new paradigm. And so how do we actually get to a place, one, where we can get a great sounding track, and two, where we can also then kind of in a live situation where there is no net, kind of feel comfortable. So one that you can do is you can do a streaming thing, but basically on, say to Facebook, have it such that there's no audience. It's just a private video. And then you can go back and watch it. And what's neat about that is that there's something about the act of, as opposed to just sitting there noodling, of actually knowing that the camera's going, knowing that the feed is happening, and then sitting there and watching that back, you kind of begin to do things. The other thing that happens is you end up with a collection of ideas that you can go, look, I may not have hit that thing exactly the way I wanted to hit it, but because I wasn't trying to make 4, 8, or 16 bars perfect, I allowed myself to color outside of the lines. And sometimes you discover things in the process of doing that you then can fine tune. In the recording world, I'm always listening for intonation. I'm listening for the timing. Where am I sitting in the track? I'm listening, do I have good dynamic range? The biggest thing that most guitar players don't do is have ranges of dynamic with their right hand. They have a tendency to play at the same volume over and over and over and over again. So what ends up happening, it just sits like this. And that lack of peak and valley is one of the things that makes the guitars start to sound uninteresting. And it's one of the things that is the easiest adjustment to make, where you're just like, well, let me play it louder, let me play it softer. The other thing is, it's just about all the gear these days is so good that when you do that, it begins to respond. It expands, it contracts. Not only do you get a shift in volume, you get a shift in harmonic dynamics. And that's a really important quality. So when you choose to, if you will, step on the gas, then back off the gas, you're taking the listener for a journey. Just in the same way our favorite guitar players take us for a journey. Nitin, what's going on, my man? Um, Good, good, good. I'm going to get to you in just a hot second here. Whoever's giving me the love there, thank you for that. So, the neat thing about streaming to a private audience, again, is you're still going through the act of doing that. Then, in the process of doing that, you've got a longer series of performances, and eventually you can kind of go, okay, well, how do I take the comfort? Because at a certain point, you kind of go, oh, there I hit my stride, right? And then go, well, what happened just before I hit my stride? Where was I at? What was I doing? And when I hit my stride, how was I playing? What was I thinking? Because usually I can watch myself and I can kind of go, oh, I can tell what I'm thinking there. I'm kind of like, there'll be some tells. I'm like, okay, well, how do I get to that place? How do I find that? And the interesting analogy here is that there's a place that we go inside our posture, inside our playing persona, that we find that particular vertical of who we are, and we tap into that. And then that enables us to go to that place. And the thing is that one of the reasons I like doing these streams is that I will create multiple verticals that I can tap into, right? And in so doing, I'm able to do that. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. All right. So that's what I got to say about that. So let me go over to Nitin. Great to see you, my friend. By the way, Nandini, I don't know if she told you about her lesson on Saturday, but we had the best lesson ever. So just for the sake of conversation, Nandini and Nitin, I met at the guitar camps. I think must have been G4 in Cambria. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in any case, um, Nandini is passionate about the guitar, and is a student. She's so kind of on her squire, but she's quickly on the way to outgrowing it. She's got a gorgeous vibrato, but she's kind of learning to solo. But she has a super smart, tremendous understanding of the theory. So we're just kind of taking the training wheels off. And the neat thing is, we basically had her kind of lay this little thing on the looper, and then just start soloing. And it was just it was a great breakthrough moment for me as a teacher to just kind of go, how do you just kind of help? It's like, I remember before I crashed into the fence, my stepfather, when they had me on the bike for the first time after they took off the training wheels and he pushed me down the hill, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm riding, and all of a sudden I'm like, that fence is getting much closer. But the point being is that it was just exciting to watch her kind of begin to go, I'm soloing, in a really, and in a way that was musical. That was a really special lesson for me. Cambria it was. There we go. Love it. All right. All right. So I've never been able to audition many good, great amps, let alone have one. The reason, apartment life, cost, and you can't have a jack of all trades amp, or can you? The consequence, I struggle to dial in the tone I hear in my head, in say Logic or Boss GP10. I request you do a DAW tone for dummies like me. Wow. Well, first of all, no dummy, but I feel the sentiment, and that is actually, so the answer is yes. So I'll tell you the plot here. Not only that, I'm going to reveal the whole plot, because this is the thing is that part of why I did the 30-day technique tune-up was to just kind of go, what does the next thing look like? Because as a teacher, it's through teaching and giving that I always get the discovery. Something comes. And I was like, something's going to happen that I don't know what it is, but I'm going to learn some stuff. And for one thing, the backing tracks, which is just affirmed that kind of my plan in the back of my head has been that there would be backing tracks, there would be some sort of lesson content wrapped around the backing track, some set of licks, and there would be tones wrapped with that. So the interesting thing of what you're talking about there is the idea of doing that in some sort of DAW oriented thing. The interesting thing is I reached out to the Neural guys today. That's one avenue. Neural DSP. Their plugins are amazing. There's Helix Native. That's another one. There's regular Helix. There's Boss as of right now. Um, does does not have a DAW, but or a plugin, but that wouldn't surprise me if at some point sooner than later they do. The other thing is I'm friends with Miko, so he's got some plugins, and I think the moral of the story would be to kind of go, okay, here is this track. Is more or less the same setup using these different things. And I've got a student that right now is actually about to become a huge rock star. I'm super proud of them. And so one of the things that I did was I set up some sounds for them to work with. And ironically, it's the sounds that for the last half of the 30-day challenge, I ended up using a bunch. And the idea of equipping people to kind of use those sounds, basically what I said when I spoke to them yesterday was like, all right, this is how I set up. We went through in HX Edit, and I showed them what I had done. I said, now save that as the next preset in the order in your set list, and just reverse engineer what I've done, and now start messing with stuff. But don't overwrite the original preset. Just go back, and so you can kind of go back as you start messing stuff around. Then you can go back, oh, what's different, what's changed, what's different, what's changed. And you can begin to kind of go, oh, I see why I placed or he placed things where he placed them. And I think there's tremendous value in that. And, there's actually a group of guys from an organization called Warship Tutorials. They were on the show here at one point. And they honestly, I think they make, I won't go so far as to say the best, but I would say some of the best sounding presets I've ever heard. They really know how to make gear sound amazing. It's honestly, it's one of the few times I pull up somebody else's sounds and kind of go, I don't think I could do that as well as they do. And that sounds a little cocky, and that's not my heart at all. But I'm just gonna like, wow, that's really, 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 really good. Where it's not just like the fidelity of the gear they figured out. Their sound design is really that good. Really, really, really that good. Okay. So we're going to probably go for another 15 minutes here, but I encourage everybody and anybody to bring in some kind of last questions that we've got here. It would be my pleasure and my privilege. So pepper me. Make me uncomfortable. Go, which is better? I'm not gonna fill in that blank. I'm gonna let somebody else fill it in. But I dare you. I double dug dare you. But that's great. Hang on. So why is that actually? There we go. Larry Mitchell, nice tune-up talk tonight, my friend. How are you? The man with golden fingers, Larry. I cannot wait till we have an opportunity. At least I selfishly say this. Until we get the opportunity to actually make some greasy music, man, you have such a great feel, and you always have. But it's like it only gets better. And your tones. The funny thing is, I was looking at my H9 today, shaking my head. That's the other person is Larry Mitchell's sounds. I'm just like the layer and the sonic fidelity and ingenuity that goes into the sound design is just brilliant, and the playing is equally brilliant. But you create you make the 7-layer cake. Like the cake is the playing because you don't need the effects or any of that stuff to sound great. But you put all that frosting on there. I'm just like, oh, this guy's just killing me, man. And such a great feel. The way you feel time, just like it's a real gift. It's a real gift. And you're in it. How many decades, man? We survived grunge. That's all I got to say. Survived grunge with great pleasure. That's good. Good. And, just like Grammy to boot, and, just in case anybody out there did not know, Larry's a Grammy winning producer, and deservedly so. So, Larry, I'm kind of curious. Oh, wait. So you've got the air step. Have you hooked this thing up yet? That's what I wanted. So this came from our buddy Andy Cherna in Canada from Diffusion Audio. Larry has one in many decades. There we go. There we go. There we go. So Larry, let me know, man. And then, yeah. All right. All right. Chris Stark. I totally forgot to send you my specific list of needs, questions, etc. related to gigging portable setup. I'm on vacation for a few days until I endeavor. We'll get that to you. That'd be great. And Chris, I loved your post. I just was frantically busy the past couple of days about. So in case anybody missed that, yes, it's awesome. Thank you. Good. You know, um, Chris's post again was about the fact that he records DI guitar with an amp playing in the room, so he's got the interaction, and then working with reamping and being able to add, as I recall, I'm sorry, Chris, you were the person on the thread, because it was your thread, that was using HX Helix Native for the effects. Is that correct? Uh, fill me in on that just to double check. But I'm 90% positive that was where your effects were coming from, which is a genius way to actually use that, because basically it means that you know any I've had, depending on what machine it is, uh, uh, Helix Native can at times be a little burdensome if I have a bunch of stuff open. If I don't have that much open, or I bounce stuff to a stereo pair, I can run it at low enough latency that I don't feel it. But as soon as I get a bunch of stuff up there, not to diss my friends at Line 6 because it's a fabulous product, but by doing it for all your time-based effects, what you're basically doing is it's all delays and reverb. So it doesn't matter if it's offset, you know, and you can get away with things where you can have a bigger buffer. By the way, if anybody's out there and does not know what I'm talking about a big buffer, the deal is that there are two main ways that people kind of monitor what's being recorded. Those of us who've been doing this for a long time, we would listen to things coming off of the console, where basically the tape machine would be sending it to the console, and our input would be going to the console, and then basically it would be working in such a way you were hearing the meeting together. And then there was a sync mode that I forget how that worked in the real-to-real world, but it's been a long time. But basically, the console is where you were monitoring stuff, and that's why the Universal Audio platform is basically mimicking. Let's see if I can get here to the actual console itself. There we go. That actually, their whole thing is they're mimicking a console where you can have different things happening on the console itself. And the concept is that basically, modern recording, what happens is that with every generation of new plugins, they make them more and more DSP intensive. And so to basically run your session, you have to create a buffer where there's a little bit of delay from when all the processing happened and the sound comes back from the computer. And so ideally, in a perfect world, you would just be playing into the computer. The sound would be processing of all the things that are happening in the background, and it would come back to you, and you would be playing into the computer in real time. Not only that, if you were using some sort of modeling, that processing would be happening in real time. But because that stuff is memory intensive, and it seems like every generation of stuff, the recording applications get more memory intensive because they do more things, which is a good thing. And each one of the individual plugins gets more memory intensive. So the workaround is basically you have this equivalent of this virtual console where the sound's coming from the computer and meeting the console, and your input is going there. And that's one of the reasons Universal Audio gives you these front-end plugins, so whether you actually, quote-unquote, print those to the actual recorded track, or you're just using them to monitor with, you're able to have the sound right when the input source is meeting the output source coming from your computer. And so they do that in this virtual console. This whole thing about latency is that, you know, if you're going to use a plugin that is inside a channel strip in Pro Tools, then there's this latency that you're kind of waiting for all the things being the drums, the bass, the keys, all that stuff to be processed, and that to be able to be present, to be heard. And if you're using a plugin inside there to create your guitar tone, quite often, to get all that stuff to happen, you have, in the computer actually run the session, you have to add varying degrees of a buffer, and in turn it means that you play and there's a little bit of delay when you hear the sound. That can drive some people completely out of their minds. I generally like 32 samples. I don't like to go to 64. I can feel it. I will do it if I have to, but any more than that, I lose my mind. The point being is that this is one of the nuances that when you're new to recording, you're just like, I don't understand. It was working, now it's not. Well, that you have to increase the buffer as you add more and more stuff to the track. Or what you begin to do is you take a bunch of tracks and you record on a stereo pair and you bounce those into that stereo pair at a good level, and then you basically take those other tracks offline. Basically, you deactivate those tracks. They're still in the session, but you basically have muted the voices of those tracks. And now you've got a stereo pair that you hopefully has the right balance of that. And the other place that happens is, say you actually have a whole drum set that's on there that's taking up a lot of space and maybe has some processing. What you do is you bounce that drum set down to a stereo pair, maybe with or without the bass. So you now have it all in one fader that you can do. The other thing about that that's convenient is you're trying to get your guitar level. It enables you to kind of go, drums and bass are now at a place where I'm super comfortable with them. The other thing I would suggest doing, because Larry was already thinking it if he's still here. What's going on, Wayne? There we go. Is that you want to separate the kick drum. That is to say, a separate channel, or separate separate mix of just the kick drum. Why do you want to do that? Because the kick drum is basically just going 1, 1, 1, and that is where your time barometer happens. And the thing is, if you know where 1 is, you can feel whatever sway or anything that's happening in the time. Knowing where 1 is and feeling where everything else is kind of dancing around that is a really important part of that. And being able to separate that out from the rest of the drum and the bass mix is a really, really important way to just be able to go, I know I'm it's like a cat. You throw a cat off a roof. We're not just doing that. They land on the 1. They're like, there's the 1. And as a musician, you got to be kind of aware of like, where's the 1? The other thing is that kick drum pattern is telling you a lot. It's informing you an awful lot about the groove, and guitar players are kind of infamous for not paying attention to that stuff, and it's huge. Wayne, what's going on, my man? All right. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Larry Mitchell. That's the beauty of the U80 hardware and console, that there's almost no latency. The genius brainiac has spoken. And that is the beauty of it, is that it enables you to do all the stuff that if you want to print it. That is to say, this goes back from the old version of those of us that were dealing with reel-to-reel recording. We could actually record with the effects that if we wanted to, or we could have them just up on the board as the mix was passing back from the tape machine back into the console on its way to the quarter-inch Ampex quarter-inch reel-to-reel, which is where everything got sent to. And because there was some tape magic that happened, and then you would put it on an ADAT or put it on, or sorry, on a DAT, or then you would send it off to maybe to burn it to a CD. But that magic of that little 2-track, that little Ampex 2-track, was the beauty of it. And yes, the Larry Mitchell, Larry knows tone and how. Wayne, great to see you again. So, Chris, all right, I'm a big fan of creating my own presets of stacks of effects as channel strips in Logic Pro. So I've got delays or reverbs that are from Sound Toys or Valhalla or Logic Native, etc. When I get a sound I like, I save it as a preset. Saves massive amounts of time. That's wonderfully clever. The interesting thing, and Larry would know this, and I'm pretty sure either I'm stupid or I have not found a way to save a preset from inside console and have that preset show up on the same plugin inside Pro Tools. And it may just be that I'm silly, and I'm sure I could probably go into the presets from console and find a way of importing them. But upon a number of occasions, I tried to save a preset. So say, for example, you're putting up a Neve mic pre with EQ. You want to capture that exact sound or have the ability to add that sound back in at the track level, but you want to have the exact nuance of the recorded sound, or I should say the sound you were recording with, on once you actually bring it into Pro Tools. And so, like, I save the preset and I go into to open it up inside Pro Tools, and it's just not there. So then you're kind of toggling back and forth, twisting knobs. And for one thing, as I don't think console processes audio exactly the same way that Pro Tools does, which makes sense. They got their own little zeros and ones thing, so it never sounds the same, and it's just a source of frustration. I have to copy it. Um, yeah, so there you have it. So okay, good, 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 good. All right, so here's the thing is that Larry, I would love to know um, what sort of stuff do you work on in improving your studio world? What are some of the things that you're kind of like? These are the things that I am wanting to maximize and continue massage. And I will share the. Oh, I copy the setting in console, open the plugin inside Pro Tools, and then paste the setting. Am I glad you're here or what? I will say the thing that I'm working on learning is trying to have all my little flavors such that I can pull them up without having to spend as much time in rehearsing. That's frustrating. In particular, when I try and do funky stuff, it takes the most time to find that spot in the time because I just don't spend a huge amount of time playing that, and so I really have to spend a lot of time. It's kind of like a Jello mold where I have to just kind of let myself get poured into where the groove is and where the kick and the snare and the hi hat are. But I just like that. That to me is really frustrating. I just can't. I just can't go there, and it's really frustrating. And the other thing that I will tell you I'm working on is for traditional shreddy guitar stuff and things. Generally, when I'm recording, as long as I'm not overly tired, what I'm hearing in my performance, I'm able to do. That is to say, what I think I'm playing is what I'm playing. But the funky stuff, not as much. It's really an interesting thing where I'm just kind of like it sounds a lot better when I'm playing it than when I listen back critically. Which gets us back to this whole critical listening thing, which is one of my favorite things. Copy the setting in console. Okay, hang on a second. Now, hang on a second. So, presets. All right, you know what? I'm not gonna. Okay. Hold on. I'll figure this out. But that sounds great. Great, 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 great. Um, Constantly working on headroom. I've been into the UAD tape machines again. I love it. I'm back into tape, but have to constantly pay attention to headroom. So um, the magic of tape is something that the Universal Audio folks really obviously get something, and I think that's one of the reasons that people that recorded in analog world, um, it's a very interesting thing. Larry, I don't know if you saw there was of the millions of things of Eddie Van Halen right now. There was a thing at the wall of tapes in 5150 studio, and I was just like, that's a guy that loved tape, right? And it's just it's a fascinating thing with that headroom and manipulating that. It's a rabbit trail, but I always thought it would be really cool to actually and do it in addition to doing it virtually, actually take your drums and throw them down to tape, and then into a 24 track Studer, and then bring them back into Pro Tools, right? So everything's separated on its own stems, but actually saturating the tape and then bringing it back in. I just think, and it's an interesting thing. I bet Larry, you heard of Clasp, right? So Clasp was a syncing technology that was for syncing your Pro Tools rig and your Studer, and it was more or less. I've still got my old SMPTE box that MIDI Man made, such that I could sync a computer. No, I could sync a drum machine and my Model 38 reel to reel, and stripe time code and get the time code and the MIDI to talk to one another. So Clasp was basically the same thing for Pro Tools and the Studer machine. So you could actually be tracking to the Studer. The Studer would actually be in sync with Pro Tools, and you could choose where you were going to put what. which I thought was rather crafty. Headroom. I've got to mess with that stuff. That is very crafty. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:30. Unless there are any further questions. Okay. Wait. Oh, wait. Hold on. Wait a second. Oh, there we go. Wait a second. How? Okay, these guys just came through. No, hang on. There we go. Oh, Mark Robinson. Hi, Larry. Hi. All right. FYI, successfully sent MIDI CCs from the ES8 to the GT1000. Core to turn off, on and off, any effect in the core. Wasn't as straightforward as I thought, but it does work well. Awesome. Congratulations. That is my, that's my Friday. So awesome and congratulations. That's great. Is it possible to connect the RC500 to the the GT1000 core via a MIDI TRS cable on both sides? Can't find such a cable. Let me conjecture a guess. Oh, Andrew Bonica, what's going on, my man? Jeff, what's happening? With pleasure. Try a 3.5 little mini connector and hook them both together. Here's what I learned from Jeff about MIDI. Is that MIDI apparently you just need 3 contacts to run across. You don't actually need 5 pins or 7 pins. So in theory, you may. I'll have to ask Jeff about this because you're talking about my world here. So and you're talking about my world in triplicate here. So I totally 100% feel you on this. Is that in theory that 3.5 mini should allow you to do. I bet Larry Mitchell knows, and if Larry doesn't know, which I guess he does, I bet Andrew Bonica knows. Because Bonica knows everything MIDI. Andrew, 3.5 mini, kind of the new mini connector dealio with a single 3.5 on both ends. Can you send MIDI changes and MIDI information? There we go, Nitin. Thank you very much. There we go. The genii are in the house. Any regular 3.5 would work. Well, that's kind of crafty. All right. Okay, so yes, and yes. I love that. I love it. TRS, obviously tip, ring, sleeve. Well, that's kind of Andrew Bond, and it's confirmed. The MIDI Jedi have spoken. That's very cool. Yeah, Andrew is a serious MIDI maniac. It should work, but I'm not familiar with using it on the Boss units. There we go. The Trinity. So that's yes. Hey, Larry, I'll find a way of doing this without calling you out, and just say, have you had a chance to try the AirStep yet? Not whether did you like it. I would never do that to you. But have you had a chance to try it? I think my stream is delayed a little bit more than the others. What if I talk like? No, sorry. That's me having. That's what the other thing I love to do. Like when I'm doing a Zoom call with somebody, if I really want to have a little bit of fun, I'll just start doing. It's really. I have way too much fun entertaining myself, but that's kind of the thing. That's a great question, Pripyat, and thank you for that because, gosh darn it, I'm going to try that, and that is great, Larry. Oh, that's funny. All right, does anybody have any more questions? Because I'm trying to keep these like remotely sane. It's been an hour and a half, and I love hanging out with you guys, but after the 30 days of lesson insanity, and Larry, Chris, gotta bail out, put dinner on. Thanks for another great, Chris. You have been such a wonderful encourager. And I apologize that I didn't actually get a chance to spend the 20 minutes it would have taken, jumping in on that stream. Oh, dude, with great pleasure. Thank you, Modular. By the way, Modular Beatmaker, I'm not great on names, but what is your name? Um, uh, Tell me because I'm kind of curious at this point. So, in any case, really appreciate it. And this, I love the sense of community, all these great people, the incredibly positive, positive vibe. It is so incredibly cool and so greatly appreciated. So, oh, Bryce, awesome. I love that name. Cool. Pleasure. Doug. I guess you knew that. Does it really work? Had an old MIDI TRS cable, but I assume it didn't work. But I'm very bad in MIDI. So this is. Thank you, Andrew. Chris, enjoy the dinner. Thanks again. Um, I think it. Well, I will try it, and that is we're talking about the 3.5 thing, but it's been confirmed by the Genii uh, that it should work, and I think it only makes sense because again, as I understand from Jeff, is that you really only need those 3 points to be able to send and receive MIDI information. So in theory, if you're sending your MIDI out to your MIDI in or your MIDI in to your MIDI out, whatever, you know what I meant. Sending the right MIDI connection, and then the other thing is that Andrew, that we're going to. So actually, Andrew and I, we actually own a domain name called musician.university. I technically own it, I guess. Hog. But we're going to do a series of, we're close enough to doing it that I can talk about a series of training courses on these different pieces of gear, and obviously the MIDI implementation around some of these is a pertinent part of this. So invariably, I think Andrew, it's just three conductors. The cable isn't doing anything special. There it is. Thank you. Spoken like a genius. So the idea is, I think Andrew, why don't you and I let's it's MIDI PDFs should help. There we go. So hang on, I can't bring that into the stream. Pripyat, that Boss's MIDI implementation PDF should help. And yes, and so I think Andrew and I are going to do. I did actually there is a video that I did that's on my channel for the RJM PBC 6X, and honestly, I was a total idiot going into that thing, and I basically was like, I have to study enough of the fundamentals of MIDI to be able to pull those off. And as I recall, I reached out to Andrew. But basically, there's a whole section about just kind of a general strategy, which is kind of like, okay, and actually, I will share this with you. This is actually really, really good stuff. So having a MIDI strategy about what MIDI channel number your gear is on is arguably, there's all sorts of brainiac stuff that you can do. But the idea of having a strategy, and I've not heard a lot of people talk about this, but it's just pure logic. So I'm not giving myself a giant stroke on the back for that because honestly, it only makes sense, is going in order of your signal chain on a piece of paper. And I still have, this isn't it, but putting everything down on paper allows you to just actually make sure that your strategy and your mapping is kind of one-to-one accurate. And basically I was like, all right, I knew exactly what was going to be on that pedal board. I knew exactly what the signal chain was going to be. I associated a MIDI number with each individual device that was sending and receiving MIDI. And that way I always knew without a doubt, and I could always go back to my MIDI map and know which MIDI device in order of sequence. So I could always begin eventually, oh, that thing is at 3. And that one is number 4, because you just begin to memorize, but you can always go back to the map and you know which device you're targeting with the MIDI information, with a program change or some sort of CC thing telling, oh, more reverb, less reverb, whatever, right? But that strategy really saved my butt because, and I've been in situations where, dealing with some sort of technology that you don't fully understand and having some sort of way of going, okay, well, at least I've brought some order to this. And the neat thing about the RJM stuff is that they've got this great deep editor that has all this deep information about manufacturer and device and MIDI numbers. So you can literally kind of choose what sort of MIDI command control change you want to send to which particular device. And actually, it's this pull down menu that makes it really easy to implement. I've not done the MIDI stuff inside the Boss thing, but that invariably I'm going to get into with the pedal board, which is the topic of this week. That video should come out on Saturday. And then also in the next week's video, which will be on rigs, we're going to have to do that to make all the stuff talk, which is going to be a lot of fun. So that is to say, if I'm clever, especially with your comment there, I'm going to get Jeff to do that. But also Andrew and I just need to, yes, draw it out. Alec Bourne from Line 6 MIDI Mad Scientist Group always tells you to sketch it out first. Thank you very much. Matthias, hey, hi. And Alec is he's a genius. Look at this. Larry Mitchell in the house. Also put a little number sticker on each device. Thank you. And I'm gonna read into that a little bit, which because every so often you might move something off the board, and you'll remember it's no longer in order, and so you just got to remember what MIDI number that is. That's genius, dude. Sai, hey, what's going on? Pleasure. Hey, welcome aboard. As we're geeking out. Yes, let's chat after today. I love that, Andrew. Let's do that. I sense a MIDI special coming up. Yes, and we should do that. Yes. I guess we're not done. Let's go until 8. Let's just do this. So Larry isn't a pro by accident. No, and his tone. Like I said, the funny thing is, how about that for a perfect analogy? Larry Mitchell, I looked at my H9 and I thought of you. Of all the people who play an H9, I paid homage in my mind, and I just kind of shook my head as just like, the sounds that guy gets out of that pair of H9s. It's in his hands, I get it. And there's some fractal stuff happening there as well, but you got magic coming out of those H9s, dude. Just magic. Just magic. Just really just a tremendous sense of how to create the tones and how to play it. Just crazy good. All right. Hey, we got more stuff here. Yep, only 3 pin. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Awesome. And let's see. Always best to match signal chain with MIDI number in order. Talking of RJ, I went over a chat with Ron today. Oh, awesome. So you're in the desert. Did I not know that, or did I know that and somehow not know that, or forget that I remembered that I knew that? So Ron and Sherry Minnelli are lovely. And I don't know what it is, but I've heard Ron is working on some new device, which is, he's always working on something new, which is very cool. And yes, Larry isn't a pro by accident. Absolutely. So let's see. You know what? Let's see other geeky gear things. Let's do that. So our last 17 minutes, geeky gear stuff. Okay. I'm just going to throw as many out, and everybody just riff. Let's do this. So one, first of all, I always wipe down, and here's the thing, I don't wipe down my strings every time I play, but I always wipe down my strings and my hardware before I put an instrument away in the case. I can tell you by the number of instruments that I have bought where the hardware's got sputz. That is a sweat that's just lived on there and just burned a little acidic hole in the hardware. Not everybody does that. And your string life and your frets will thank you for that. Not in the desert, North San Diego County. Nice. Oh, that crazy drive. Did you take that crazy drive up through the mountains? Dude, that is insane. Insane little drive. Thank you, Doug. And yes, I love my air stuff. And thank you for that connection. With pleasure. If we can't help each other out, what are we doing? And I was just like, I know a guy that is, I just was like, you got to meet Larry. Awesome. I can't wait to, and this is the cutest little antenna ever. I mean, this is like, I think that, and just like boom. And obviously the eye lights up. I haven't powered this puppy up yet, but that's a tomorrow thing. Okay. So the other thing is, just for the sake of conversation, one of the mistakes that guitar players make is that they have a tendency to want to put their pickups hotter than they need to. And I think at a certain point you grow past that. But just in case anybody's like, hey, just like, If you find that, first of all, that there's not a huge amount of dynamic range in what your guitar is doing, unless you're playing with a maximum amount of gain, you might want to just try backing your pickups off, because you'll find that that gives you a larger dynamic window. The other thing is that don't buy crappy cables. I think everybody on here would not make that mistake, but just for the sake of conversation, there's a reason they're in that. Well, they used to be in that little pile by the door at Guitar Center. That's for the people that don't know to not buy those cables. That said, a crappy audio cable, so long as it's not lack of connection fidelity, that is to say, it's just not a great cable, but the contacts are good, is great for some sort of foot switch. So that, whether it's a tap tempo or some sort of amp switching thing, as long as you don't need a TRS for that, that is a great use for that. So that is one of the things that I have discovered. The other thing is be really conscious where you put your cell phone. I've made this mistake time and time again. I'm like, I'm hearing this chirp, and there's certain devices where the chirp of the cell phone is always the same, and there are other ones that it's different. And you're like, the heck is that noise? I'm like, it's a cell phone. So there's just a little bit of RF happening as it's kind of being a cell phone going, hey, got reception, so it's doing that thing. So just be really conscious of where you place that. Your locking fine tuners, don't overclamp, because they basically wear stuff out. The other thing is that if you're a locking fine tuner person, keep an extra wrench in your car. You'll thank me for it. Ditto with an extra pack of strings. I bet Larry Mitchell has an extra pack of strings in his car. I bet you anything. Or he's got a box. Because there's nothing like showing up at the gig and you grab the other gig bag and you just weren't thinking. Like I have strings in every possible orifice. No, not every possible orifice, but every place I could stick a string that it should go. I've got them, because I don't want to show up at a gig without strings. Like, you just kind of never know when you get a bad string, and you're kind of like, oh, I've got a problem here, and so that whole thing of just like the string. So here's the other thing: is strings are markedly different. And one of the things that I would suggest doing is, when you get a new guitar, find out from the manufacturer, because usually, in many cases, the dealer won't know. Find out exactly the gauge and the brand of the string that came on that guitar. Because, the interesting thing is, I've got a bunch of guitars from Fender here, that I've actually really, really, I love not only the sound of the guitar, but I love the sound of the strings. And so, it's an interesting thing, is like, some people just don't want to engage this conversation with me. I don't quite know why. But the reality is that your pickup creates an electromagnetic field. The equivalent of magnetic conductivity of a string impacts that magnetic field at a vibration of frequency that is the pitch of that thing. If you put a nylon string in the middle of that field, it would have basically next to no impact on that. The chances are, moving back and forth, the vibration would do something. What that something is, I can't tell you. But the point being is the more magnetic that magnetically conductive, we'll just use some stupid phrase that I made up, the more that's going to impact that field. So the thing is that different strings not only are going to have different sonic characters based on the components, but also those components are going to impact the way that they're going to interact with that magnetic field. And I had this happen. And you might have heard me tell the story. I had an amp on loan from the Greek guy, the Marshall guy, who now I'm forgetting his name, but brilliant Marshall plexi guy. And I broke a string, and I'm like, put another set of strings on there, and I was like, something's wrong with the amp. And it's like, well, has anything changed? I'm like, well, I just put different set of strings on here. It's like, well, that'll do it. And literally, the sound of the guitar, it wasn't just kind of like the strings were brighter. The way those strings were interacting with the pickups was just night and day. I'm a relatively aware person, so if I put a string on there and it goes, oh, that's dull, that's not dull. The other trick is this. This guitar right here. Hang on, I'm muting. that puppy has got these vintage strings, and they're super expensive. But the whole thing is, this guitar is basically a '58 reissue. I'm back on you. Of it's a early to mid '90s reissue of a '58 Strat. And so I've got these old school strings on there, the strings that Jeff Beck and Joe Perry use. I'm going to forget the name of them, but they're basically these beautiful nickel strings. And this guitar I purposely set up with that. I've got an old Les Paul, did it with that because I want to use the era appropriate strings for that. But for the other Fenders here, their new the new Fender strings, which are almost undoubtedly, I think we've talked about this recently, made by Diodario. Those strings sound and feel amazing, and they're right for those guitars. And that's the other thing, is finding that string that's right for the instrument. And for a long time, I was of the belief, like, I play one gauge, it goes on all my guitars. Those guitars taught me a lesson, which is kind of like, no, actually, there is a string that really is the right string for the instrument, more or less, in my world. And so finding out what that string is, that when you play the guitar and you're like, oh, this is a great guitar, that initial string that was put on there, Fender is doing some great stuff right now. And so in that framework of that, they're being very conscious about what pickups they put in there, what strings they put on there, and that's part of the magic. So that is a thing that I've become really conscious of. So just be conscious of that. All right. Not tested myself, but I heard that a guitar with only a single pickup has more sustain to less magnetic pull from the pickups. Yeah, so the deal is that, like, this humbucker's got all this pull, and the other thing is that it's also going to affect the intonation, because the string can't vibrate as fully, so it does all sorts of very bizarre things. Strings, a cable tube screamer. Oh, wait, okay, hold on, there we go. Like I grossly underestimated Larry. I will not make that mistake again. So strings, a cable, a tube screamer, a Boss delay in my car, and usually a folded guitar stand. And there you have it. That is why he's Larry Mitchell. Like, it's just like, I'm ready to walk into any situation and just rule. Oh, I love it. Oh, that is great. Oh, that is gold. No, he's not a pro by accident, is he? Yes, and yes. The other thing is that, I'm sure it's in Larry's compartment, and I, the funny thing is that I keep buying boxes of batteries. I've got actually a battery thing that I bought on Amazon that's sorts the batteries and all the different things, but I managed not to put my 9 volts over there. But I did have an enlightening experience the other day. I had this puppy in my pocket, and it made contact with a key, and I'm like, I'm feeling very warm right now. I was like, oh, there's a battery in my pocket. That was an interesting experience. The other thing is, just while we're having this conversation, there's another type of latency that we're all kind of encountering these days. This is the 60S, as I recall. HD60S Plus. So if you're looking to do some sort of HDMI capture, this is a... I wonder if the cam link... Oh, by the way, let me show everybody a little trick. Let me see if this has happened. So there was a period of time, most recently, Elgato.com. What a lot of people don't know is that... let's see. Can I find this capture? All right, there we go. Camlink 4K is kind of like the go-to capture card for people. But what you can do is you can go to shop now on the Elgato site, and guess what? There you go. You can buy one. So, and that's actually where I got mine. So that's great. They're in stock. The last time I checked, which was about 2 weeks ago, they were not. So if you want to take your clean HDMI output out of your DSLR, if it has one, you then want to run that into some sort of capture card. This HD60S Plus was available when the 4K wasn't. This one is fine. Here's the thing: is that most people in their right minds, with myself excluded, although I've stepped it back to 1080p, are not streaming in 4K. but they still want to have the ability when they want to capture 4K from their camera. Um, in guitar world, just for the sake of conversation. Now, the interesting thing is there are all these other cute little HDMI capture things that have crept up on Amazon that I purposely bought a bunch of these little $20 ones, and they seem to do 1080p just fine, and they're cheap. And unfortunately, I didn't get into producing the video for these yet, but per the little DPA mic here, and that is the cutest little mic ever, by the way, and they sound amazing. But the idea of kind of going, okay, well, here's some of the cheap capture cards, and there's another one up here on the desk. And actually, I'll go through, because the thing is that there's batches of these things that come in from China, and then that batch kind of wears through, and then the next batch comes in. So I got to double check that these guys are still available. It's here on the desktop, but it's a little 4K. When you couldn't get the cam, like a little 4K thing that was like $30 or $40. So the neat thing is that just kind of figuring out how you're going to get from your camera into if you're going to use the HDMI and then into your USB, if you're so inclined to do that. I actually am using... No, I'm not going to show you how messy my desktop is. Am I? No, that camera's not on at the moment. Okay. So the idea is I actually use an application called Ecamm Live, and that enables me. By the way, Larry, they finally have the stereo guest feature now. Thank you for enduring. But basically, I use an HDMI mini USB, and then that goes into a tradition on the cameras to capture the USB output, and then bring that in, and then Ecamm Live recognizes that as basically a virtual webcam. And so, and I run those into 3 different computers, and I basically record using the record function. Then I bring that into Premiere. And so that is what I've done is on the cheap is I'm able to use my old these 2 cameras are original 7Ds, which was like the first kind of DSLR video camera. It's a traditional camera, but also shot video. The first 5Ds did not shoot video. So these guys do that. I actually ended up buying, I had 2 that I had from days past, and I went out and bought a third body for $200. So now I've got 3 matching cameras that have similar look, and then this is an EOS R, which is an expensive camera that is quite, in this moment, a little bit more camera intelligent than I am. But the point being is it works really well. It's a great camera, and the Canon glass is great. But actually, as long as we're going to go there, I will say I can, and I bet Larry can as well. Awesome on the stereo guest feature, yes. So the I must admit, if any of you are endeavoring to think about video, Paul David's video look, it's that classic Sony thing. And Mason from Vertex and I have become buddies, and we were on some video call, and I was like, "That's Sony, isn't it?" And he was like, "Yeah." The Sony stuff I love the Canon look to it. It's got a particular vibe. I love that, but the Sony has almost the word that comes to mind as a funny word is sunset, where it's just the way the colors kind of blend into each other. Where Canon's got this kind of majestic-y kind of thing. The Canon look is it's a presence, where the Sony stuff just kind of blends stuff together in this really, it's kind of like Larry Mitchell's delay and reverb, where you're just kind of like, wow, it's awesome. It's just so that stuff is really, really cool. And ultimately, they're also about to come out in Canon world with the M50 Mark II, which is a very reasonably priced camera. Richard, my buddy, has the M20, which basically has the identical features, but is like, in the sub $500 range, which is a great price. And then you're able to utilize the Canon glass. I do not believe the M series glass is without some sort of adapter interchangeable with the EOS R stuff. But as I recall, Canon has some adapters so you can use that. So ideally, you're actually buying, the glass is the idea. Obviously, most of the stuff comes with a kit. I'd be curious if anybody's got any And there, M200 Richard Doyle, the man appears, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you very much. But the point being is that has all the features that you would want. Clean HDMI, and it's Richard. What's the price point on that? Look at you. And Richard plays a mean guitar too, by the way. I'll add. Good guy, great guy, actually. So, in any case, there's there we go. Oh, this is good stuff. All right. Well, I feel like I'm babbling, but this has been great fun. Richard, okay, hang on. All right, let's go to the Zon of Amazon M200. There we go, 420, sub $500. So I mean, and Richard is hang on, is that going to be the kit with the nifty what's M200? So is that a kit? My guess is that's a kit. All right, hang on. Yeah, yep, that's going to be a kit. So that's just a huge amount of value. That is a huge. Okay, yeah, there we go. There's a 15 through 45, which is perfect for this type of thing. You know, the biggest challenge that I learned pretty quickly is like, if you're going to be relatively close to the camera, and you're holding this thing called a guitar, you better have something that's 20 millimeters or less, or else you just have to be miles away. And then if you're working the keyboard or any of that stuff, you got this whole problem. So, that 15 through 45, that's a great length for a lens there. There we go. All right, awesome. 15 through 45. Awesome. That's a great kit. $438. That's a steal. All right. Oh, that's the renewed one. There we go. But still, I've actually bought some stuff that's renewed and never ever had an issue with it. Nikon, some funny things they managed to sneak in here. Nikon seems to have kind of not kept up, and for the hardcore Nikon folks who've got Nikon glass, it would not be a happy time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been fun, exhilarating, gear festonious, and hopefully we did cover enough gear, tech, and recording. I love you guys to death. Thank you so much for hanging out. Larry, always a pleasure. And Richard and Andrew, and hang on. Kind of moron does a blog roll at the end. Walmart 422, my word. Hang on. Let's do this. Here we go. Mark, there we go. Pripyat, Bryce, everybody. Just thank you so much for hanging out. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you next Wednesday. And right around that time, I should be starting to fold some of the new secret plots of what I'm going to bring into the show here. So let's see how I do. Love you guys. Have a great night.